Hello and welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today's webinar, Unburdening Identity Verification in Healthcare, Improve Security and Experience. Before we get started, there are a few housekeeping items I'd like to cover. At any time, if you want to ask a question, just type it into the Q&A box, and we'll either follow up with you at the end of the webinar during our Q&A section, or we'll get back to you directly after the webinar. Also, a link for today's recording will be sent out to all registrants via email, so please feel free to share the recording with your colleagues. And with that, let's get started. So let's review the agenda for today. First, I'll take you through our speakers and introduce you to them. We will then give an overview, or I will give you an overview of some of the healthcare trends, challenges, and goals. Spencer will then introduce you to our new identity verification solution and how it works. And then Jason will show you some demos, and we'll then discuss how to combat fraud more broadly. Spencer will then review the returns on investment that you can achieve with our new joint solution, and we will then close with some questions and answers. All right, with that, let's get you introduced to our today's speakers. I have the pleasure of introducing Spencer Crane, Principal Solutions Architect at ID DataWeb. And next we have Jason Vino, who is the Senior Solutions Architect at Ping Identity. And my name is Shasta Turney, and I'm the Director of Healthcare Solution Marketing at Ping Identity. All right, so let's get started now with covering some healthcare goals, challenges, and overall objectives. Today, healthcare organizations are faced with many challenges. There's increased competition in healthcare market, often from tech-savvy new entrants. And as our 2023 breach report shows, the healthcare industry is actually the #1 attacked industry of all industries. So as healthcare grows increasingly digital, it's exposed to ever-increasing risk. And it's also caught up in a game of consumer experience innovation. Of course, healthcare organizations must also operate within a very tight budget, which limits the amount of innovation that can be explored in order to better compete in the market itself. Next slide, please. In terms of goals, healthcare leaders are looking to increase patient and member acquisition, prevent breaches and fraud, and reduce costs so they can reinvest in the business. Achieving all of these things, of course, helps to deliver better care as well as grow the business. Next slide, please. By now, most leaders know that in today's digital economy, user experience is everything. But what you may not know is that for every $1 invested in user experience, an organization actually gets back $100 in revenue. And this is according to a Forrester study, and that's quite staggering. $1 invested for $100 in ROI. Next slide, please. So what's the risk if you don't invest in customer experience? Well, you likely won't meet your customer acquisition and retention goals, and you may run the risk of losing business to healthcare organizations that focus more on it. Next slide, please. Of course, meeting consumer expectations for experience to grow your business and beat the competition is not just about delivering the best experience. Healthcare consumers now expect both experience and security. It's no longer a choice. Healthcare organizations must deliver both. Next slide, please. But the sad reality is that the healthcare industry is under attack. And as I mentioned before, that healthcare is the #1 attacked industry of all industries. But what I did not mention is that it's been that way for 5 years running. This fact does not bode well in the face of exploding new account fraud. Next slide, please. Nor is it good that new account fraud is also increasing at an estimated 354% year over year, which is staggering. In fact, the HHS Office of the General Inspector is looking to increase fraud is looking into the increase in fraud due to telemedicine. And with robust identity verification, think of the ease in which fraud prevention can be achieved here. Next slide, please. So now let's pivot to the stages in the digital healthcare consumer journey. Each of the boxes you see on the screen represents a stage in that consumer journey, and digital identity plays a role in each. The overarching journey should support your goals to boost consumer acquisition, reduce risk, foster loyalty, and grow revenue. To meet your business goals for the consumer acquisition stage, you must make the conversion from a visitor to account creation a really great experience. And importantly, this conversion must be done in a very secure manner. Next slide, please. This is where identity verification comes to play. Unfortunately, traditional identity verification that relies on a consumer to use a government ID is a very cumbersome process that can often lead to abandonment. So to boost consumer acquisition rates and reduce security and fraud risks requires a new approach to identity verification that's easier for your consumers, but that doesn't introduce risk to your organization. And that's what we're here to discuss today. So I'm now going to turn it over to Spencer for a deeper dive. Spencer, take it away.
Thanks, Shasta. When we talk about identity verification, what we're really talking about is how to remotely establish digital trust. Digital trust, at its core, is this question of actually knowing and believing and trusting that the person that you're interacting with, the digital person you're interacting with, is in fact the physical person that you expect to be interacting with. This feels like a binary problem, but for most organizations, it's not so binary. And we like to think about digital trust really in three levels. We think about digital trust in terms of a self-asserted digital identity. This is a situation in which a user is declaring that they are some person, but we're not actually doing any kind of validation and verification around the truth of that assertion. So, if I say I'm Spencer Crane and I provide you some information about Spencer Crane, and you're simply trusting that I am in fact being honest and truthful about who I physically am, that's where we're in a place of self-asserted digital trust. And really, that's the lowest possible level of digital trust, and not a level of digital trust that any of us should be tolerating in kind of this remote first healthcare environment. The next level up from self-asserted is where most organizations who have started to kind of dip their toe into identity verification are at, which is this concept of a validated identity. In this situation, I'm establishing that I'm Spencer Crane, and I'm providing you some information about Spencer Crane as a person. That might be something like a name, an address, a phone number, social security number, what have you. And organizations that are pursuing this level of digital trust are typically reaching out to a credit bureau or a telco provider or some third-party data source to establish that there is, in fact, a relationship between those different pieces of PII. But in that moment, we're establishing there's a valid identity somewhere out there. We still haven't established that this person here and now that I'm interacting with digitally is, in fact, this physical person that they're claiming to be. And that brings us to really the level of digital trust that we should all be striving to be at, which is this concept of a verified identity. With a verified identity, not only are we reaching out and determining that the identity being claimed is a valid, legitimate identity, but we're also taking some additional measure to verify that this person who we are interacting with here and now is in fact that valid digital identity. Typically, this involves some additional challenge to bridge that digital to physical gap. Typically something that you have, in this example, something like phone possession, something typically this can be something like knowledge-based authentication, or something you are, typically an approach that contains biometrics or some other behavioral verification method. The challenge becomes when we're trying to achieve this verified level of digital trust is to do this effectively involves quite a number of data sources, a number of individual solutions, and overall a good amount of complexity. And this is really why orchestration of identity verification and authentication is so critical to this broader picture of securing remote interaction. It's not enough to just verify that I'm Spencer Crane and this is my phone number and I'm in possession of that. if, for example, I'm coming from, a dark web browser or a blacklisted IP, or my phone itself, which I'm relying on, is SIM swapped or recently ported, or any of these obvious signs that this phone is no longer a good source of authority, or if the address I'm claiming is fraudulent or not residential, so on and so forth. And these checks about checks are just as foundational as the core checks you're attempting to perform when we're talking about identity verification and authentication. And so this is one of the big reasons why we're so excited to collaborate with Ping with regards to our overall approach to identity verification. What ID Data Web offers is an attribute exchange network, which essentially looks out into the marketplace, aggregates and orchestrates a variety of top data sources and solutions that typically would have to be procured and managed and integrated individually. What this allows you to do is kind of check these individual boxes as needed without the undue burden of, again, procuring, integrating, and managing a wide variety of solutions that may very well be best at one specific thing, but are not sufficient overall for a general approach to identity verification and remote digital trust. We accomplish this through an admin console that essentially allows you to easily and quickly configure everything from the policies, reporting, and integrations associated with these types of identity verification flows. And the big thing, particularly relevant to this conversation, is that all of this is out of the box integratable with any Ping product, either via an out of the box Ping adapter or a full library of REST APIs that can easily be integrated into via DaVinci. What this orchestration translates into is not only an infinitely customizable approach to identity verification, the individual checks that we're doing, the types of methods we're utilizing, but also works out into a variety of out-of-the-box, extremely powerful templated approaches to identity verification. Running through these quickly, MobileMatch verifies a user's identity based on their possession of a phone that they're associated with, and a phone that is, again, not risky, looking at key factors like ownership history, porting, SIM swaps, type of phone, etc. Dynamic KBA verifies a user is who they say they are via question and answer. This replaces traditional static KBA, which typically involves user-provided questions and answers, with credit, employment, and ownership history-derived questions and answers that are particularly resistant to easy phishing and research, and far easier for the actual person to answer. And lastly is Ping1 Verify, which takes the approach of verifying that a user biometrically matches an identity document, a government ID that is authenticated in real time. Together, what's powerful about these individual templates, and we'll get more into this in the following slide, we know that there are lots of very good users who may be utilizing something like a prepaid phone, which is not going to be a useful source of authority, or who have limited credit or ownership history and are not going to be good candidates for dynamic KBA, or folks who have something as simple as an expired driver's license, or simply challenges of utilizing a smartphone to capture some of these images, for whom Ping1 Verify is not going to be the best option. What we've seen across our customer base is that typically 80 to 85% of these users can pass one of these methods. And so by allowing a user to start with the lowest friction method and stepping up gradually to the higher friction method allows us to achieve these extremely high 95% plus approval rates without sacrificing on security. Thinking through more granularly the advantages of each of these methods, let's start with Ping1 Verify, and I'll turn it over to Jason to speak to that method specifically.
Great. Thank you, Spencer. Yeah, so as Spencer mentioned, all of the following proofing methods ensure that a person is who they claim to be at that time of registration. So we have that linking of the verification along with that registration journey. However, as Spencer mentioned, there are advantages and disadvantages or considerations for each method. So Ping1 Verify is great at verifying physical and digital credentials. So we'll talk a bit more about digital credentials a bit later, but we do have a single SDK that can do both verifying physical and digital credentials. We also can do verification for facial recognition, selfie matching, liveness checks, and voice recognition. So whether the user is on a mobile device or desktop, we can give them that same experience. However, there are higher frictions due to this government ID requirement. as Spencer mentioned. So that's where dynamic KVA and mobile match are lighter verification methods that allow you to do still achieve that 95% accuracy for verification methods without necessarily needing a government ID or possibly using it in places where government ID checks aren't yet available.
And thinking through these in terms of friction, likely the next level down in friction, sort of a happy medium option, tends to be dynamic KVA. This is a powerful method. It tends to work extremely well, especially when you consider the fact that it does not involve a physical factor. That can be both a strength and a weakness. When we think about the classic example of a user who doesn't have a wallet or a phone available to them and needs to demonstrate that they are who they say they are. Mobile match is our lowest friction and arguably the most popular and most well-known method that we offer because of its extremely low friction and the extremely broad adoption of mobile phones at this point in time. As Jason mentioned, all these are extremely good methods of verifying identity, and most leading organizations, particularly in healthcare, are utilizing 2 or more of these methods to achieve the highest possible pass rates. What this translates into is what we call the come as you are verification philosophy. Inclusion at the end of the day comes down to the number of people that you can say yes to without undermining the security of your existing customers and your organization and your industry as a whole. We know that as Shasta highlighted, more and more patients and members are increasingly making use of these online portals and call centers to remotely access their care and health data. We know that patients and members are also not only increasingly sensitive to the security of their health data, but also the privacy of their information, and are less willing to provide details that they might have been willing to provide in the past. We also know that particularly in healthcare, some of our largest consumers are those who are elderly or often less technically savvy patients who can have challenges with identity proofing approaches like capturing images of documents and biometrics, which typically involves a smartphone. And just as well, a large consumer of healthcare services is underserved patients who can have challenges with the more traditional methods that rely on credit bureau data and ownership history. So really, you can see that orchestration is not just a key tool for ensuring security, but also a key tool for balancing these equally important levers of security, friction, and cost, right? Of managing to get to a place where we have a highly secure and privacy-centric and flexible approach to remote identity verification. The last thing I'll highlight is that not only is this important on the web, but it is incredibly important to think about across all channels, including mobile and call center. If that's something that's of interest to you as an organization, we'll talk a little bit more about that later on. But again, what we continue to see as the landscape continues to evolve is we are only as strong as our weakest link. And if we put in place this best-in-class approach to identity verification on web, what are we doing to prevent bad actors from pivoting to less secure channels? And with that, I'll pass it off to Jason to show what this looks like on web and give you a deeper view into what this process might look like for your organization.
Great. Thank you again, Spencer. So next slide, please. So we're going to go through a demo now, and the demo is going to be broken up into 3 separate parts. The first part is going to go through the registration, and that'll be just purely through our Ping 1 DaVinci orchestration platform. So in Ping 1 DaVinci, we're going to be rendering all of the screens. Everything that you'll see through here is all driven through DaVinci. And we have an ID data web connector in DaVinci that allows us to natively call their service. So that, again, if you're unfamiliar with DaVinci, it's our low code, no code orchestration platform. And we have, again, a native connector that allows us to use ID data web services simply and easily through our interface. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go through a progressive registration, and it's basically a progressive profile registration. So we'll ask for a bit of information through a series of screens that will then take that information and send it along to ID data web. So with DaVinci, we have a native ID data web connector, but we also have connectors for our Ping Federate application, as well as our Ping 1 Advanced Identity Cloud Journeys orchestration tool as well. So we have ID data web integrations in multiple Ping products. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is our DaVinci workflow. So you'll notice that when you click the sign up button, it's actually launching the DaVinci widget. So this is the DaVinci workflow that's running now. That's doing the progressive profile and capturing the information from the user. So we're going to be capturing their first name, last name, mobile number, and then on the next screen, we're going to be capturing their address as well. And with all this data, we're going to send it securely over to ID Data Web that will use this information to first attempt a mobile match, which you'll see in the next video. So this transition now, as you can see, we're now in ID Data Web's service, and we are able to brand it. We're able to add our logos and our backgrounds and things like that. So we're able to, customize the process quite a bit. So now that we've transferred that information over to ID Data Web, we're now going to progress through a number of checks on the ID Data Web service. Again, all driven through and orchestrated through DaVinci. So the first section is going to do a country selection. So it's going to confirm the country that you live in, but also behind the scenes, ID Data Web is also performing a number of risk checks behind the scenes. The second thing it's going to do is verify the information that you entered on the initial form. We do restrict the information from being modifiable. It is recommended to do that because you want the information recorded in your orchestration tool, again, in DaVinci, for example, to be your main source of truth, because that's what you're going to ultimately use to create your account and whatever identity store that the user is going to live in. You want to make sure that the identity that you're matching is the information that you're matching against in ID Data Web. So we don't want to allow them the ability to modify that data. The step 3 is going to do a SMS text to your phone with a verification link. And this basically closes the loop between verifying that the information that you've entered matches the information in a telecom lookup. The telecom confirms that your first name, last name, mobile number, and address all match. Then it sends a text to that device to confirm that you have ownership of that device to verify. So next slide, please. So now we've picked up on our orchestration journey that we looked at previously. And as you can see here, the data that we've entered in previously on our DaVinci flow has now been federated over to ID Data Web. And the attribute information is displayed on the screen. Again, as you can see, it's been grayed out. So we're unable to modify that data. Again, we want to be sure that the information we entered previously is the information that we're going to be verifying the identity against. So the next thing we're going to do is it's going to confirm your mobile number as well. And it's going to display the last 4 digits. And then now we're going to do a side-by-side where you can see the mobile device and the text and the information that is presented on the mobile device and how that experience looks. So we've received an SMS text from ID Data Web. And as we progress through, it has a link. And we're going to simply click on the link, which is going to prove ownership over the device. There is also additional risk checks that are being performed by ID Data Web. And then once we click the verify button on our mobile app, it's going to verify your identity, verify ownership of that device. And then our DaVinci flow will continue. And as you can see, it'll show that we have now proven our identity. And then from this point on, you can continue through your orchestration journey, whichever experience you would like to present to your user. So the last step is we're going to pick up where the former video started, but we're just going to take you through the KBA steps. So the dynamic knowledge-based authentication step is another way that you can verify the identity through a lighter touch without having to either have a mobile phone in your possession or government ID. And this does credit check lookups to ask information specific to yourself that would be very difficult for someone to spoof and be able to guess the answers. So we'll skip to the next slide and we'll see what that video looks like. So as you can see, we're picking up exactly where we left off, and we're just going to go through the KBA spot this time. So we're going to ask for the information or verify the information you entered previously is the information you want to prove against. So you can, again, see that the information is grayed out and cannot be modified. The one thing we need to do now is, in order for the credit lookup, we need to also ask for your date of birth. So we're only using that for the ID proofing. Again, in your orchestration experience, if you required the date of birth throughout your orchestration journey in DaVinci, we could also federate that information over to here as well if you'd like. But again, since we didn't require that, we're not presenting that information here, so we're allowing the user to enter that on this screen. So we're just going to complete the date of birth. Again, we're just blurring this information out just because we are using real live data, and for the sake of personal privacy, we are blurring the data. So now you can see that the next screen that shows is some very interesting information that's being pulled that you can answer against. That's going to be very difficult for someone to guess and to spoof. So you can see that it's asking for your driver's license, what's your approximate height, what college did you attend, and what was the vehicle that you most recently owned. Again, each time you run this, there'll be a different set of questions. It won't be the same ones. Some will ask for employment history, some will ask for, and again, a number of different options. So now that we've answered all these questions correctly, it's going to verify our identity. And again, our orchestration journey can continue depending on how you'd like to have that progress. So the key takeaways from the demos that we just watched. So we have light verification options. So mobile match and KVA are both light methods that you can use standalone, or you can use it to supplement your flow. So you could have, you could use Ping1 verify with voice biometrics and verification, GovID checks. You can use mobile match and KVA or any combination thereof. Because of that customization, you have an easy customer experience. Mobile match and KVA are familiar, they're easy to use. They also provide a 95% verification rate. So even though it is a lighter touch than GovID, it is still very reliable and very, very secure. Verification is based on 40 plus attribute providers. So ID Data Web has partnered with over 40 different attribute providers to provide this detailed information, and again, to achieve that 95% verification rate. And again, the cost and value, the best part of all this is the mobile match and KVA are actually the least expensive methods to use for verification and achieve high verification rates. Next slide.
As with everything that Jason just showed as part of this demo, identity verification is an important part of your broader anti-fraud strategy, but it is still just one part. It's an ongoing discussion, and clear to the market now that really you need not only identity verification, but extremely robust fraud detection, authentication, and access management, and you need it across all channels to really effectively stop fraud as it continues to emerge, adapt, and take advantage of the current gaps in the system. With that, I'm going to pass it to Jason to introduce a couple additional tools that Ping offers that are specific to some of these other areas of anti-fraud.
So Ping1 Protect is one of our newer exciting products that we have with Ping1. So it is our threat protection platform, and it offers a number of exciting new services. So it can reduce the number of MFA prompts that your users can see. It has robust predictors that we'll talk about in a minute that can help prevent identity fraud, and also helps gain visibility into the risk and fraud of your environment in your organization. There are 4 primary use cases that we use Ping1 Protect to solve. The first 2 primary use cases are more security driven, and they are protecting against account takeover and new account fraud. And then the other 2 are more experience driven. So again, removing MFA fatigue and password friction. Next slide. So our Ping1 Protect platform has a number of predictors that you can customize and choose how you want to basically give the weight to those different predictors. So you don't have to use them all. You can choose the ones that you want to use, again, depending on what's relevant for your particular organization. So these intelligence-based policies combine the result of these multiple risk predictors, and it calculates an overall risk score. Now, with that risk score, you can choose different areas that you can say, I want to deny access entirely, I want to approve access, or I want to introduce some sort of step up authentication. So maybe I want to ask for a password again, or I want to do an additional MFA prompt or something along those lines. So again, these different predictors have, we can do bot detection, we can do IP velocity, we can check to see, impossible travel, things like that. So we have a number of different predictors that, again, you have complete customization over which ones you want to give, particular weight in more importance to your particular organization. Next slide. So now we're going to look at these primary use cases that we talked about previously and how the different risk predictors can solve those attack vectors. So the primary use cases we talked about previously, MFA fatigue, password friction, account takeover, and new account fraud. Again, different attack vectors, different ways that these could potentially be exploited. And you can customize, again, your risk predictors based off of which of the areas that either are most important to your business or which ones you want to focus on and tackle first. The exciting thing with Ping1 Protect as well is you can have one policy in action and then have another one that you're looking to possibly implement in the future. You can actually have that running alongside of it and see how they compare, see how your new policy would match up against these different criteria that you're looking at. So again, once these different risk predictors, they work together to generate risk scores, and then again, you use those risk scores throughout DaVinci, for example, to again introduce more friction, or even allow like a passwordless scenario if you have high confidence and high trust in the device. Next slide. So the last thing we want to talk about for the Ping1 products is the technological journey. You can move again at your pace. So in phase one, again, most people are likely starting, maybe at phase one or phase two currently in their technological journey. So phase one would be, centralizing your patient and provider access, providing SSO, MFA, profile management, orchestration, things of that nature. And then once you move to phase two, again, we'll help you across this along your whole journey. But phase two, you can start introducing those identity verification and threat protection methods that we talked about previously, as well as additional authorization methods and things like that. And then finally, you can move to the phase three, which really incorporates complete healthcare IT integration. So you can introduce passwordless. You can look at zero trust, which we have an excellent comprehensive offering for zero trust as well. And then we can even dive into decentralized identity, which is an emerging and very exciting new area that we have a solution for called Ping1 Neo. And decentralized identity is fast growing, and it's a very exciting new area.
So thinking about that broader journey and everything we've talked about today, not only are we worried about, of course, delivering an improved customer and patient experience, and improved customer and patient security, as well as security for the overall organization, but we also want to know, are we getting the bang for our buck? And the great news is, with all of this, the answer is definitely yes. Just across our customer base, what we see is that roughly 3.9% of account openings are blocked for fraud. So when we think about the level of new account fraud that you can see at an estimated $675 per stolen record, you can imagine just the sheer volume of exposure that means if you're not mitigating new account opening fraud. When we think about the cost of an individual identity verification compared to the average potential fraud cost per record of over $26, we're typically seeing an ROI in the range of or greater than 25x return on investment. So in terms of the dollar cost per protecting an individual patient record versus the cost of compromising that patient record, the ROI is probably one of the best that you can access within the identity and access management space. When we think about what this translates into for customer acquisition, leaning back into some of the challenges that Shasta covered to start, achieving 95% plus pass rates for good actors is an extreme competitive advantage over your competitors. When you think about having to say no to folks at the front door of your organization because you are unable to verify them to a given standard, or you're asking for too much information that results in users falling out of the journey, or you're not enforcing any verification, but you're seeing substantial exposure to fraud, pass rates is really where that last mile of user acquisition comes from. When you only have to manually deal with onboarding a few percentage of users versus the 15, 20, 25% of users that most organizations using traditional verification methods are having to deal with, that is a huge advantage, not only in customer experience, but also in terms of cost savings and overall user acquisition. And lastly, we've alluded to this a little bit, not only is this very, very prevalent and worthwhile when it comes to web, but there's tons of cost savings and opportunities for ROI in the call center and help desk. On average, our joint call center solution saves about 126 seconds per call. When we think about, again, not only the broader customer journey, but the fraud journey, we have to secure call center to the same level as web without introducing additional friction. And this is precisely how we can do that and drive substantial cost savings while benefiting from the reduced exposure to fraud and the increased ability to acquire customers without friction. And with that, I'll pass it back to Shasta for some closing thoughts.
Excellent. So that is the conclusion of our webinar presentation. Stay tuned. We do have some time to answer some questions, but I also want to keep you all appraised to the fact that we are planning a webinar on preventing account takeover. So that's going to broaden the conversation that we've started today. So stay tuned for that. And with that, let's go to our Q&A. All right, so let's see here. We have a few questions in. One is this solution available via API in addition to OpenID Connect?
Yeah, I'll take a first pass at that if that works. The demo that Jason just showed is that hosted gateway solution. So a user experience that is fully branded and customizable on our side and easily able to be redirected into and out of according to kind of the OpenID Connect standard from the ping adapter. Just as well, we can do that from DaVinci, and just as well, DaVinci can also access all of those same services via API directly if you prefer to own that user experience. I'll just also mention that all of the things that you've seen today are fully customizable, including the integration paths, et cetera. So definitely, I'd say don't be afraid of that one.
Awesome. Well, that actually is interesting because the next question talks to customization. How customizable is the hosted experience?
The host experience is extremely customizable. Everything from look and feel to branding to language to messaging. Pretty much everything that a user will see, including things like the URLs that are exposed, et cetera, can be customized and fully white labeled and branded to your organization. So not only is the interface fully customizable, but as mentioned, the workflows and the policies and the verification methods themselves are deeply customizable. So whether that's meeting a specific compliance requirement to verify some additional thing, making allowances for certain exceptions that you know of within your user base, whatever it may be, we have an extremely intuitive kind of point and click logic-based system for customizing policy, the PII that you're passing in, and the checks that you're getting out.
And just to add on a bit to that for the DaVinci side of things. So DaVinci is basically a sandbox for whatever you would like it to be. So DaVinci has full screen rendering capabilities. So those screens that we're showing during the progressive profiling and registration, those are all being rendered from DaVinci itself, so not being rendered through through other means. So the screens that you can see in DaVinci have full HTML, CSS, and JavaScript capabilities, so we can render and customize the look and feel of your screens as well as your flow to really any level that you'd like.
Awesome, thank you for that. Let's see here. Can this solution be applied to the call center use case? I know we talked about help desk earlier. Can either of you elaborate a little bit more when it comes to the help desk, call center, contact center, et cetera, front desk?
Jason, do you want to take that first?
Sure, thanks. So with Ping One Verify, so the interesting piece with Ping One Verify or combining Ping One Verify with something like ID Data Web is the voice verification really opens up some interesting avenues for call center use cases. So during the identity proofing workflow, you can do that optional voice verification recording. So basically, it'll do a voice recording and voice match against you and store that voice biometric. So that voice biometric can then be used to verify your identity at a later stage. So again, we want to treat it as a verifiable credential. So once we've proven who you are, either through Ping One Verify or ID Data Web, then we can also do that voice biometric, which allows you to do that, lighter touch verification at a subsequent point in time.
I'll just add two things to that. So, when we think about voice as an authentication tool, that's where a lot of those time and cost savings come from, because it is always a factor that a user is going to bring to a call. The additional value there is, there is no perfect, third-party authority on what a voice sounds like. And so engaging in really, really robust identity verification prior to establishing that that is somebody's voice is key to actually making use of that voice authentication tool. The other really, really powerful thing is, especially when we consider that coming out of a mole match verification, you have a trusted and verified phone number. That allows you to establish two factors, again, that a user is always going to bring to any call center interaction, which is a phone number and their voice. So together, mole match and voice verification and authentication kind of make the perfect combination for bridging the gap between call center and web. And the last point I'll just make is, again, the ability to look cross-channel is something that's unique to combining those solutions and allows you to not only see when a fraudster is trying to move from web to call center to take advantage of a gap, but also when a frustrated user is moving from web to call center to deal with a specific problem that they need help with. And both of those are, again, really important parts of both security and user experience.
Awesome. Thank you. I learned so much from these Q&As. So thank you so much for answering all these. We have a few more. How does this type of verification adhere to the NIST guidelines?
So if we think about the three verification methods in terms of the NIST guidelines, we can reference how NIST establishes certain specific attributes and pieces of PII as strong versus fair factors. There is a new version of NIST coming out, as there always is, but I'll lean on the current framework. So biometrics are treated as a strong factor. NIST has treated SSN, phone number, specific pieces of PII as fair factors. Typically an IL2 verification, which is essentially considered the highest NIST level of verification, short of a supervised remote verification, requires either two strong factors or a strong factor and two fair factors. Mole match is typically considered to be the verification of a fair factor. Something like Ping Verify would be the verification of a single strong factor, and something like KBA would be the verification of a single fair factor. We do have solutions, joint solutions that do reach that IL2 standard. And of course, you can imagine with the level of customizability available with ID Data Web's product and with something like DaVinci, you can very quickly achieve whatever level of within the NIST standard you're pursuing.
Excellent. I think we have time for two more questions. So let's see here. What requirements are needed to implement the solution?
So from the Ping side, so if you wanted to look at the solution that we presented today, you would primarily need DaVinci. So that would be on our Ping One platform. So you need the Ping One and then again, DaVinci as a service added onto that. And that's essentially all you would need from the Ping side. And then of course you would need a license and things like that from ID Data Web, which I'll let Spencer talk about that one. And again, if you're also using Ping Federate or Ping One Advanced Identity Cloud, we have integrations with those platforms as well. And again, with Ping One DaVinci and the ID Data Web integration that we looked at today, we are building some productized workflows that will be published to the marketplace that you'll be able to download and use those as a starting point to basically capture what we looked at today to get you started. So we're going to make that very easy for you to implement.
Awesome.
Yeah, from our side, extremely flexible and standardized integration with all Ping products. All you need from our side is, as Jason mentioned, there's a pretty quick onboarding process, but at the end of the day, come to us with kind of the PII that you're going to be willing to utilize and collect, and the things that you're concerned about, and we can very, very quickly, really in a matter of moments, have one of these verification workflows ready for you, and then customize it needed from there to meet your goals.
Excellent. Okay, so we're gonna then close out with one more, and I think this one is very interesting in that it talks about something that you touched on, Jason, which is decentralized identity. So the question is, can you speak more towards that? What is decentralized identity, and what's the promise for healthcare?
Sure. So decentralized identity it's an emerging new technology that Ping Identity is investing heavily in with our Ping One Neo platform. So Ping One Neo is comprised of two primary products under that umbrella. So Ping One Verify, which we talked about earlier today, and then Ping One Credentials. So Ping One Credentials is essentially that decentralized identity via digital credentials that are stored in a digital wallet on your mobile device. So essentially, Neo gives you back control of your identity and your identity data. So instead of having it stored somewhere, you are the storage. So you retain your data. You have your data personally with you on your device that you can then use, at future points in time. So with Neo, so with Verify and Credentials combined, you can verify your ID. You can do document identity claims, including your driver's license. And then once you've, again, proven your identity, or again, using ID Data Web to prove your identity, you can issue a verified digital credential based on those factors. So again, it's because this is being issued and being essentially minted that this is verified information, the identity proofing step is extremely, extremely important to that. So whether it's through Ping One Verify or ID Data Web, you really want to have, absolute assurance that this person is who they say they are before you issue that credential, which is why it's essentially called verifiable credentials. Now, once you receive that credential on your mobile device in your digital wallet, so we also offer an SDK that you can integrate, within your healthcare application, that you can then store that digital credential within, excuse me, within that wallet. So with that digital credential, it could be anything from that registration form that we looked at earlier. So you could have basically your full name, mobile number, address, all stored in a digital credential. So if you go to a doctor's office, instead of having to fill out that form again, you can just scan your digital credential with a QR code, pick the credential you want to send, and then it'll populate that data for you automatically. Some other exciting use cases you could use it for would be to store your emergency contact information or health information like medications, allergies, things like that. So you can have multiple credentials on your device that you can go to any doctor's office and immediately just present all of that information without having to, again, fill out forms, fill out paperwork. You retain that data, it is with you, and then you can use it, wherever you go.
Excellent. And I do know we are looking into having some future webinars, as well as the role of decentralized identity in healthcare and the many, many ways that it can be applied for both experience and security. And with that, Spencer, did you have anything you wanted to add on that, or any closing remarks?
Perfect note to end on. I guess I'll just add that we are very much a kind of an attribute first based verification approach. So we work very, very elegantly with the Ping One Neo product, and we're really excited to see where that will take us.
Awesome. Any closing remarks from either of you to conclude this webinar?
Just want to say thanks everyone for attending and for the time. And again, happy to happy to answer any further questions as they come in, if any channels through that. Plus looking forward to seeing anyone again on future webinars.
Yeah, and thanks so much from our side to Ping for hosting us, and for everyone's time here today for attending.
Yes, thank you everyone for attending. And with that, we will end our webinar. Have a fabulous day, and we really hope to talk to you soon about this great new solution that we have created together. And with that, thank you very much.